Hey, it's Ionis, and today I'm going to be bringing you the overview for the containerization update for the IonBC open test. So the first thing I want to go over is where the downloads are now going to be housed. So if we just very quickly go to ionbroadcaster.com, you'll see this page here. The website is still under construction. If you have QA access, you can still go in and play around with things if you want. Otherwise, if you want to just download the most recent version, all you got to do is click this button right here. For those of you that use the legacy version, don't worry, there's a download for the legacy version right down here. Alright, now that that's out of the way, let's dive on in. So the first thing we're going to do is open up IonBC here. And when you open up the application, it's going to ask you for your Discord username. So for the open test, we've done away with licensing. So everything is now tied behind a Discord username and no licenses are required. When the website is finally finished and we're ready to push this out to an actual production version, and I'm happy with the state of it, we will go back to that licensing structure tied behind a fixed subscription price. But until then, it's open to use. All you got to do is throw your Discord username in there. And then you'll see we have a new patch notes window. Obviously, there's no media source for the containerization patch right now because we're currently making it. But as you go through each individual patch note, you'll see that if there is media associated with it, it will dynamically load within the patch note itself. This will always open on first run of the application when updating to a new version or a fresh install. And if you end up closing it and never want to get back to that window, all you gotta do is click this button right up here on the toolbar. Alright, now that that's out of the way, let's get into actual containerization here. So first on the server page, we're going to go into our local tab. You'll see this has changed a little bit. We now have a containers subpage. In this containers subpage, if we click add, it will open up our containerization UI engine. There's a couple of things to go over, but I've tried to keep this as streamlined as possible. But let's go over the toolbar controls here first. We have a toggle for the toolbar here, which will just hide and unhide the toolbar. We have our add window here, which will add a window container. We will talk about this soon. We have our width and our height. This is the default width and height of the window containers as they come into frame. We have fill, which we'll go over here in a second. We have background, which will toggle on and off the background color of the playground. We have grid, which will turn on and off grid snapping. So for example, if I were to make a window container here, and then I were to move it around, you can see it snaps to the grid cell here. But if I were to turn grid off, I can drag this around wherever I want and put it wherever I want. Alright, so enough of that. Let's get rid of this container window, turn grid back on. The slider over here will allow you to modify the number of cells per row in the grid. And then of course you have the name text box for naming your container and the save button. Then all the way on the right, you can click this to close out. Alright, so let's turn this slider on down to 20, and let's add a window container in here. Now if we click our fill toggle that we mentioned earlier, you'll see that the window container will be filled to give us a better visual representation of its position within the screen, as well as when it may be over or under. So there's a couple of things to go over here for the actual window container itself. In the bottom left here, you can see its dimensions. In the top right here, you can click this, as you've previously seen, to delete the container window. And in the middle here, you'll see a star. This star indicates what is the primary window container. So when switching between the subclients and the primary container, so when switching between clients, the window marked as the primary window will be the container that all clients switch into. So we'll have a better idea of that later when we actually get into the demo side of things and showing off the containerized clients, but for now we're going to leave one as our primary container. You can have as many or as few containers as you want. For now we're going to go with a standard 6-box setup, so I'm going to get that set up here really quickly. Alright, so I have my 6 boxes here. Quick tip when you're making these subclients down here, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take a subclient, find a window size that you're happy with that fits within your specified layout, and then set your default width and height to the width and height of that window container. That way, every single one you make from there on out will be the width and height of all of your other subclients. Alright, so now that we got this set up, we're going to give it a name. We're going to click Save. And as you can see here, we have our demo container. If you ever want to edit the container, you can click the Edit button, or you could just double-click the row in the grid, like so. But for now, let's go back into our profiles here. Let's add a profile. And as you can see, we now have a container option. This container option will hold all of our predetermined containers. Whichever container you select here is the container that that profile will launch using. So I'm going to really quickly set up a profile here with the EQ game processes, and then we'll go over some new structures that exist within the local profile designer. Alright, so we have our basic local profile set up here. Let's go over some of the new structures. So first we have the username column here, which can be used to load usernames into clients dynamically upon launch, so you no longer have to manually type each individual username per client. Next, we have the window number column here. So for this, we'll need to select a container. Let's go with our demo container. Then as we click this, you can see we have numbers 1 through 6. These directly correlate to our container slot numbers. So I'm going to very quickly set this up how I'd like it for my 6-box crew, with the Paladin being the initial primary. Alright, and then I'm going to throw my usernames in here and probably censor them, but you know, you can trust me on that one. Alright, now that we're fully set up, we're going to go ahead and click Save down here. Now we have our Containerization demo local profile selected here. If we click Launch, you'll see we have all 6 clients launched and containerized. Now you may have noticed a spinner down here. When you see the spinner on the subclients, that means the local profiler shim is still initializing. You're going to want to wait until that spinner concludes and you see the client's custom name label. As we look like we're all set up here, I'm going to go back into the Paladin as the primary, and we're going to go ahead and log in. Now that we have every character logged in, we're going to go ahead and go to our usual server of Frost Reaver. From there, I'm going to log into my characters by entering world as always. And after getting a headache from the horrible flickering lights in Common Lands, you can see we're all here and loaded in. Now we can switch around to each individual client by just clicking on its box in the subclients down here. And then we can always switch back to the initial primary by clicking in the box of the last selected subclient. And of course, even containerized, IonBC works exactly as it usually does. So let's click our form group button real quick. Then let's get an all follow going here. And, oh man, there's, of course, 7 million people in Common Lands. And, of course, our Bard speed. And away we go. Alright, so that is it for the containerization overview for IonBC 2. As always, I'm expecting there to be a couple problems. I know I've been kind of sitting on this update for a while and testing it for about a month now, but still, even with all of the work that I've put into this, I'm definitely expecting some things that I have missed. Please, if you have any issues, feel free to let me know anytime, and I will dive right on into them and get a fix out as soon as possible. You shouldn't need manual updates any further due to me now having the auto updater working through the API that we've instantiated over the IonBC entity framework. So updating should be a lot cleaner and we shouldn't need any actual manual updates anymore. That being said, I am going to be looking into expanding this for EQ Legends as it has been requested. So look forward to some updates regarding that in the future here. And thank you, as always, for using IonBC2. And if you need anything, feel free to contact me anytime. Have a great night.